My son asked me to sign one paper at the kitchen table, and that's when I realized my family was stealing my house. They said it was for my own good. They said I was confused. But what I did next changed everything, quietly. Was I wrong for protecting myself? Like, comment, and subscribe, because this story isn't what you expect. My son asked me to sign the paper at the kitchen table. Everyone was watching, and I knew right then I was being robbed. He didn't raise his voice, he smiled. My daughter-in-law slid the pen toward me like she was doing me a favor. The paper said it was just to help manage things. That was the lie. I could read enough to know my house was on that page. I had paid for that house with 40 years of early mornings and tired hands. Now my own family stood there, acting like it already belonged to them. I looked around the room. My coffee mug was gone. My chair had been moved. Even my mail no longer came to my name. Small things, quiet things, but all together they screamed one truth. I wasn't the owner anymore. I was the burden. When I didn't sign, my son sighed like I was embarrassing him. My daughter-in-law checked her phone. No one defended me. No one asked if I was okay. That night, I lay in my room, not my bedroom, my room, staring at the ceiling fan, realizing something terrifying. They weren't planning to help me. They were planning to erase me. And the worst part? I still loved them. But love doesn't stop theft, and I was about to find out how far they were willing to go. After that night, the house felt smaller, not physically, emotionally. They stopped asking what I wanted for dinner. Plates appeared already filled, sometimes empty. My groceries disappeared. My name vanished from the utility bills. When the mail came, my daughter-in-law opened it first, always saying, "It's easier this way." I learned to stay quiet. Quiet keeps the peace. Quiet keeps you inside the house. My room had a lock on the outside. They said it was for safety. I smiled and nodded. I learned to keep my purse hidden under my sweaters. My Social Security checks were deposited into an account I no longer saw. On Sundays, they went out without me. I watched their car pull away from the window. The silence afterward was loud. I tried to remind myself of the boy I raised, the scraped knees, the science fair nights, the way he once promised I'd never be alone. But promises get old, I guess. One evening, I heard them laughing in the living room. My name came up, then money, then my house again. I stayed still, barely breathing, like if I moved, they'd remember I existed. That was when I realized something else. They weren't just taking things from me. They were practicing life without me, and soon they were going to prove it in front of everyone. It happened at my church's fundraising brunch. My daughter-in-law offered to handle the donation. She stood up, smiling too wide, and told everyone how hard it was to care for an elderly woman who didn't understand money anymore. That elderly woman was sitting right there. Me. People turned. Some looked uncomfortable. Others nodded. She kept talking about bills, about how the house would be better managed once it was officially theirs. My son didn't stop her. He just stared at his plate. Someone asked me if that was true, if I was confused. My heat crawled up my neck. My hands shook, but I folded them in my lap. I said nothing. Silence has been my shield for years, but silence can also be permission. When we got home, my daughter-in-law told me I embarrassed her by not agreeing publicly. She said, "People think you're ungrateful." Ungrateful? for my own life. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the deed copy I had secretly kept. My name was still there, for now. They thought shame would break me. They thought public pressure would finish the job. What they didn't know was this: I had finally reached the quiet place where fear turns into clarity, and clarity doesn't cry, it plans. I didn't sleep much after that. I kept seeing my son at 7 years old asleep on my chest during a thunderstorm. I remembered skipping meals so he could have seconds. I remembered co-signing his first loan when no one else would. Love makes you blind. Memory makes it worse. I kept asking myself if standing up meant losing him forever, if protecting myself meant becoming the villain in his story. I walked through the house early one morning, touching the walls, the doorway where I measured his height, the window I cleaned every spring. This place wasn't just wood and paper. It was proof I had existed with purpose. I sat down and asked myself one simple question: if I do nothing, what happens next? The answer came fast. They would take everything. Then they would tell people I agreed, and one day I would be gone, quietly, and so would be my truth. I didn't want revenge. I wanted dignity. That afternoon, I made one phone call, then another. No yelling, no threats, just calm questions and careful listening. For the first time in months, I felt something steady inside me. I wasn't choosing war, I was choosing myself, and once that choice was made, there was no going back. I moved slowly, on purpose. I met with a legal aid attorney downtown, free consultation. I brought my documents, the deed, bank statements, everything they thought I didn't understand. Turns out, I understood plenty. The attorney explained my rights, clear and simple. My house, my income, my consent mattered, more than my son's plans, more than my daughter-in-law's confidence. I updated my will, changed my account access, set up a trust that protected me, not them. I didn't tell anyone. Silence can work both ways. 2 weeks later, I asked for a family meeting. I laid the papers on the table, not angrily, neatly. I said, "This house stays in my name. My money stays mine. If that's a problem, I can live elsewhere." The room went quiet. My daughter-in-law laughed once, then stopped when she saw the signatures. My son finally looked at me, really looked. They had assumed weakness. They had confused kindness with surrender. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten. I simply stood up and said, "I deserve peace." And that was the moment the balance shifted forever. They didn't apologize, but they didn't argue either. Within a month, I moved into a small apartment near my church. Bright windows, quiet mornings, my name on the mailbox. My son calls sometimes, carefully, like someone learning a new language. My daughter-in-law doesn't, and that's okay. The house was never the real victory. The victory was this: no one can take what you do not quietly hand over. I sit on my couch now, tea in hand, knowing I didn't break my family. I simply refused to disappear for their comfort. Love should never require humiliation. Care should never come with control. If you're watching this and feeling that same tightness in your chest, that sense of being slowly erased, please hear me. Silence is not peace, and dignity is not disloyalty. Sometimes the strongest thing an older heart can do is stand still and say, "Enough." So tell me, have you ever been pressured by the people you trusted most? Would you have done what I did?
If this story spoke to you, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more quiet truths that matter.